Hello, welcome to Diary of a Creator. So today I want to talk about having confidence and self-esteem to be able to go after what we want and create the life that we truly desire. Now, there is a really big block around this for so many people in terms of having enough confidence within themselves and self-esteem to actually want to try, put it out there and give it a go. And it stops a lot of people from even trying. And I know it can be very crippling. I have suffered from very low self-esteem and confidence throughout my life. So I know I've been there. I've been in the block and the almost like it's completely overwhelmed everything that you just like you're frozen almost. But the thing is, and particularly when it's on this creation journey and manifesting, or you're wanting to break free of the societal mind-based conditions, is confidence and self-esteem are not actually prerequisites for getting what you want. It might feel like they are, most certainly, and it can really feel like they are, but the absolute truth is that there are no conditions that prevent you from getting what you want. Now, that sentence in and of itself is probably quite difficult for the mind to comprehend. Still a work in progress for me too, because we're taught the opposite. So we are taught to you must have this before you have this, and then you have this. And it's almost this like progression. And absolutely, in any evolution path, that's the way as well, right? But when it comes to the premise of who we are, now, if we go, we've always got two parts within us playing out. We have our soul and our heart, and then we have the mind, the unconscious, the ego. There's more layers than that, but we'll just kind of simplify it into that. And when we are sitting in a place of low confidence and self-esteem, it's not that there isn't parts of us that truly and innately believe that we can do it and truly and innately know that we can do it. It's the fact that the parts of us that do not believe that, which is the unhealed inner child, the wounding, through experience, we are just placing all of our focus onto that part of us. Now, and this is something that I certainly got a bit caught into with the first kind of it coming into the healing journey, is fixing myself, which is common. And what we want to do is get rid of all the parts that we don't like about ourselves, basically. And all the parts that we don't like about ourselves, we deem as holding us back. And naturally, the parts that we don't like about ourselves is where we hold lower confidence and self esteem. And so for me, mine has always been about like a fear of being seen. And so my confidence and self esteem issues will always come out when it's got anything to do with that, like connections or speaking. I'm going to go into a literal example of how I moved through one of these. And that's really where I, in essence, have deemed myself inviolable versus other people. And so, what we naturally want to do is get rid of these parts of us. We don't want them there. They're blocking us. So, if you're listening to this with confidence, self esteem, no doubt you're probably fully aware of your patterns and how they show up, and you just want them to go. And this is really what we do get told a lot to do is like rewire your mind, get rid of your blocks, release your blocks, and all of this language. And by and large, through a healing journey, you can take the fuse out of your blocks, so to speak, or your wounding or your conditioning, however your whatever wounding archetype you're playing out. You can work on them and you take a lot of the heat out. Like this will naturally shift your behaviors. So, an example for me, when I started to work on the inner layer of these wounds and the beliefs and kind of working on coming into self-love and acceptance, my drinking and eating habits, which were bad, I came from an eating disorder and my drinking was, I was a blackout binge drinker, very pretty extreme on that, to be fair. They just stopped. The overconsumption just slowly dwindled. And so, yes, you do release the patterns over time. But the moment you shift yourself into a new reality, so you'll go for something new that you have never done before, and you push yourself beyond your comfort again, the same block will come back up. This is just what happens. It is our fear-based survival part of us, which is looking. So the moment it feels comfortable and you've kind of progressed it to that point, it's all safe, and then you go and try something new, this part of you will come back up. So what we need to get clear on is you don't get rid of your blocks which will be holding the confidence and self-esteem. Rather, you work on how to neutralize them. And by neutralizing, it means they are there, they are recognized as fears. So, confidence in whatever area of your life it's coming up, it's a fear, it's real, it's a part of you, but it is not all of you. And so, for those who go on to create amazing things that look like the most confident people in the world, and they might be confident now, but it doesn't mean that inside they do not have the voice of doubt, the voice of comparison, the voice of, is this enough? The voice of, are people going to judge me? The voice of, what if people don't like me? They don't, they have all of that. They've just learnt the art of getting what they want, irregardless of that. And so this is really the tweak. And it's a big tweak because it's you can go into like, particularly when you want to work on confidence, self-esteem, you're going, oh, I just want to fix it. I want to get rid of these parts. And it's just not about that. It's about recognizing why these parts are there in the first place. Through the neutralization, there is this magical place that you get to where you allow the fear, the low confidence, the self-esteem to be there, but you recognize that in that same moment, there is a bigger part of you that truly believes in everything you're doing, that has an insane amount of confidence, an insane amount of self-belief, and you know that you can focus on that part at any time. And in order to really get to that place, we've got to be so aware of the root of why we don't feel confident and why we're lacking self-esteem. We need to get right under the skin of it and where it's come from so that we see it coming. We are friends with it. We know what it feels like. We know the moments it's going to trigger. We know how it's going to try and derail us. We need to know all of this. We need to get really intimate, and it's not comfortable because we do kind of face it on. But the problem is most people don't do that. They don't go head on into the confidence and self-esteem. It's more well, I'm not confident enough to do that, rather than, okay, I'm not confident enough to do that. Why? Why am I not confident enough to do that? What has happened in my past that has made me feel this way? What's actually underneath it? Is it even true? Like, this is the thing. And confident or not confident, doubt is always going to be there when we try and do something new, just generally speaking. And those who are on the will appear to you to be more confident, it's coming from like one of two things. Either they have genuinely experienced a lot of validation in their childhood, particularly around an area. So you probably might feel confident in some areas and not in others. Look at the validation. Were you validated on the part that you don't feel confident in? Or were you criticized? Because that will start to play out there too. Or they've just built confidence over time. Because confidence, it is a muscle. It is not a personality trait. It is something that if you in childhood were given the validation on something, you will start to grow that muscle and that confidence more to the point where you will maybe appear to be a more confident person. But it's a muscle. So you might lack confidence now in your ability to do something, but it isn't your lack of confidence that actually prevents you from doing it. Because your lack of confidence can exist at exactly the same time as you focus on going for what you want. Will it be comfortable? Fuck no. It will require a lot of courage and a lot of discomfort because you're walking into what you fear the most. But it can exist. It isn't a condition that I'm not confident enough that completely surrounds and swarms you. Because at the same time as there is an inner child, a wound that's telling you, I am not confident, and that's where all your focus is, there is an equally, if not greater, part of you that just knows that that's not true. And to walk through an example of confidence is a muscle is back to my fear of being seen. So when I grew up as a teenager, well, child into teenage, really up until probably, oh gosh, early 20s, I suffered with severe low self-esteem and confidence. I was dead shy, painfully shy. I barely spoke a word in high school. Even when I got into my first internship in uni, it was just, I don't speak. Basically, that was the feedback, I don't speak. And that's true. I didn't speak. I was very, very reserved, very held back. afraid to speak, basically, and had really low confidence around that. I've got to admit, the only thing that got me through that, where people like started to see different sides, was alcohol. And I know people kind of shit on alcohol a little bit, but I don't know, it helped me in that moment, in the energy and the vibration that I was at. Alcohol really helped me to come out of it. But I want to go into public speaking because obviously, naturally, someone who didn't speak at all, and I remember doing speeches in high school, and holy hell, like it was just the worst thing ever. But I went into a career in corporate where I had to do presentations, and I had a huge fear. Like, I'm talking up all night, um, diarrhea, anxiety, wanting to vomit, not eating. I Before every presentation at the beginning, I would literally write out a script of what I would say, and I would keep rehearsing that until I knew every single word to say, and I would only be okay then. Get up, clammy hands, absolutely freaking out. And then I just had to keep showing up. So I had to do it because it was my job, which was the easier part of conquering this, because it wasn't my decision. I had to show up and do it. But I showed up even though I really was like, holy crap, I look like crap. I can't do this. This is terrible. And then I started doing that, and then slowly over time, it didn't get easier for a couple of years, I'm honest. But then I started to receive feedback from people, and my internal reality was, they can see me sweating, I'm red, I'm freaking out, they can see me shaking, and they would be like telling me, "You're such a confident speaker." And I'm like, "What? Okay." And then I got it again, and then I would get it again. And I was like, okay. And then it turned this marking point where I had to do a presentation in an auditorium in front of like probably 100 people. And this spun me back into anxiety because it was so big. And I practiced literally word for word, did it again, went there up all night, pooping my pants nearly, all of the high anxiety stuff. I did that presentation and something shifted in that moment. And as I say, confidence is a muscle because you prove to yourself. And that was a big one. And for some reason, I finished that presentation. I was like, I nailed that. I know I nailed that. I still felt the anxiety. I still lacked the confidence until the end, where I'm like, I pulled that off. Oh my God, I actually pulled that off. Funnily, that presentation was the same one where the client absolutely lost her shit at us for other reasons. And I was just sitting in this high because I'm like, well, I did it. I presented and I know I was good. And then from that moment, it just cascaded to the point where towards the end of the career, was presenting and not even preparing. I didn't even have notes. And now I do that on webinars. I do it here. I've presented at workshops. I've run workshops. I've been on stage and all of this stuff. Now, if I had have waited to be confident before I even entered into any of that, it wouldn't have happened at all. It happened through proof of the way I felt, because there's a knowing when you've really nailed it, and then you do receive feedback from people, which helps. Now, we can't necessarily be reliant on other people's validation. It does help. We need to validate ourselves. And that turning point in that big auditorium one, I couldn't have given a shit what other people told me. I was standing in it going, I nailed it. And that was the turning point. That took about 5 years of consistent action. And to the point where I now, and this happens often, I actually really love speaking. And when I go into my visions and creations, my future is speaking. And it's almost, the universe has a way of working where often the skill that you need to develop the most is the one that you might be lacking the confidence in, or afraid of the most. And if you lean into it, you might find that actually by leaning into it, that's exactly where you needed to go. And it's certainly been the case for me. So that's why I say confidence is a muscle. Now, we need to be aware of our limits too, where you can't, like, if you were me at the beginning of that fear and then I was put straight into the auditorium, that wouldn't have been good because that's like trying to come from here and going all the way up here. This is the path to greater confidence and self-esteem. And assuming you do not need it before you start. This is the thing. It's about knowing it's there, recognizing it's there, growing the muscle through consistent, very small action, and at the same time, tapping into and becoming innately aware that there is a part of you that is far greater, has a way bigger plan for you than your fear, and is rooting for you this entire time. And that is the part and the energy that we need to draw into. Now, I wouldn't say even in that speaking journey, I was necessarily aware of that. I am back in hindsight as to exactly why I had to go head on with that. But if you can, tap into that because it's there. And this is it. It's about validating yourself as you go along, going, oh my God, I just did that. Next one, oh my God, I did that too. By the time you know it, you'll turn around and the thing that you were afraid of the most and you lacked the most confidence, it won't be there anymore. Okay, I hope that was helpful.